The woman walking barefoot through the rain looked like she had already lost everything. Her clothes were soaked. Her hair was stuck to her face. She was carrying a little girl wrapped in an old gray blanket, trying desperately to protect the child from the freezing rain. I was driving home when I saw them. At first, I didn't recognize her. Then she turned her face toward my headlights. My hands froze around the steering wheel. It was my daughter, Emily. I slammed on the brakes. My 68-year-old heart nearly stopped. For 6 months, Emily had refused to tell me where she was living. Every time I called, she gave me the same answer. "Dad, I'm fine. Please don't worry." But she wasn't fine. Not even close. I jumped out of the car and ran toward her. "Emily." She stopped. For a second, she simply stared at me. Then her face collapsed. "Dad." She began crying. Not the quiet kind of crying. She cried like someone who had been holding everything inside for far too long. I reached for my granddaughter. "Give her to me." Emily hesitated before handing me the little girl. The child was burning with fever. Her lips were pale, and she barely opened her eyes. "What's her name?" "Lily," Emily whispered. I pulled Lily against my chest and rushed them both toward my car. "Where have you been?" Emily climbed into the passenger seat. She stared through the windshield. "I couldn't come home." "Why?" She didn't answer. "Emily, look at me." She finally did. There was fear in her eyes. Real fear. Not embarrassment. Not shame. Fear. "Who did this to you?" Her lips trembled. "I can't tell you." I felt anger rising inside me. "I'm your father. You can tell me anything." She shook her head. "You don't understand. If they find out I'm here." "Who?" She looked toward the dark road behind us. Then she whispered 6 words that changed everything. "They know where you live, Dad." My blood ran cold. "What did you say?" "They've been watching you." I looked in the rearview mirror. There was nothing behind us except rain and darkness. I drove home anyway. When we reached my house, Emily wouldn't get out of the car. She kept staring at the windows. "Dad, you shouldn't have stopped for me. I'm never going to regret saving my daughter." She started crying again. Inside, I wrapped Lily in warm blankets while Emily stood near the kitchen doorway. I made soup. She hadn't eaten properly in days, but she barely touched the bowl. "Emily," I said gently, "tell me what happened." She stared at the floor. "My husband took everything." I frowned. "Mark," she nodded. "Your husband. He wasn't the man you thought he was." My stomach tightened. "What did he do?" Emily's fingers began shaking. "He made me disappear." I didn't understand. She looked at me with tears in her eyes. "Dad, Mark didn't just leave me. He wanted everyone to believe I was crazy." I slowly sat down. "What are you talking about?" "He took my money, my apartment, my bank cards. He told people I was unstable. Then he took Lily away from me." I looked at my granddaughter sleeping on the couch. "What happened to her?" Emily covered her face. "I got her back 3 months ago." "From where?" She didn't answer. Then suddenly there was a sound outside. A car door closing. Emily went completely still. Her face turned white. "Dad." "What?" She whispered. "Turn off the lights." I immediately stood. "Why?" "Because they found me." I walked toward the window. Emily grabbed my arm. "Don't look." But it was already too late. Across the street, beneath the street lamp, a black SUV was parked. Its engine was running, and someone was sitting inside, watching my house. Emily whispered, "They're here." I stared at the vehicle. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Nobody spoke. Then a man's voice finally came through. "Mr. Parker." My heart pounded. "You have something that belongs to us." I looked at Emily. The voice continued. "And if you don't return her." The line went dead. I turned toward my daughter. "What do they want?" Emily was trembling. Then she said something I never expected. "They don't want me, Dad." She pointed toward Lily. "They want my daughter." I didn't sleep that night. Neither did Emily. I moved Lily into my bedroom and locked every door in the house. The black SUV disappeared around midnight, but the fear remained. At 6 in the morning, I called an old friend of mine, Daniel Brooks, a retired police detective. When he arrived, I told him everything. He listened without interrupting. Then he asked Emily one question. Why does Mark want your daughter? Emily lowered her head. I don't know. Daniel stared at her. You do know. She looked away. I realized then that my daughter had been hiding something much bigger than a bad marriage. Emily, I said, this is no longer just your problem. Lily is in danger. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Finally, she whispered, Mark was stealing money from his company. Daniel leaned forward. How much? Millions. My eyes widened. Emily continued. He used my name. What? He created accounts under my identity. When the investigation started, he planned to make it look like I was responsible. Daniel's expression hardened. Did you have proof? Emily nodded. I found everything. Where? She looked at Lily. On a small memory card. My heart began pounding. Where is it? Emily shook her head. I don't have it anymore. Who does? Mark. Daniel stood. Then why is he after Lily? Emily's voice became barely audible, because the memory card contained something else. What? My father-in-law's financial records. I stared at her. Her husband's family owned several businesses. What does that have to do with Lily? Emily wiped her tears. Mark's father was laundering money through the company. Daniel looked at me. This is bigger than a family dispute. Emily nodded. That's why I ran. I walked over and placed my hand on her shoulder. Why didn't you come to me? She started sobbing. Because Mark threatened you. I froze. He told me if I contacted you, you'd die. The room went silent. He showed me photographs of you. My stomach dropped. Photographs. Emily nodded. Pictures of you leaving the house, going to the grocery store, sitting at the park. Daniel immediately moved toward the window. They've been monitoring him. Emily looked at me. I was trying to protect you. I hugged my daughter. You should have trusted me. She cried against my chest. For the first time in months, she looked like the little girl who used to run into my arms whenever she was afraid. But then Lily woke up. Mommy. Emily rushed to her. Lily looked at me. Grandpa. Yes, sweetheart. She reached into the pocket of her tiny coat. Then she pulled out something. A small silver key. Emily's face went white. Where did you get that? Lily looked confused. Daddy gave it to me. Daniel immediately took the key. What is this open? Emily stared at it. I've never seen it before. But I noticed something engraved on it. A number. Daniel said quietly. Could be a safety deposit box. Emily suddenly remembered something. The bank. What bank? Mark had a private box. Daniel looked at her. Do you know the number? Emily nodded slowly. 317. My heart began pounding. The key could lead us directly to the evidence Mark had been trying to destroy. But there was one problem. We didn't know whether the box was still there. Daniel made a call. 20 minutes later, he returned with an answer. The box existed, and someone had accessed it yesterday. I stared at Emily. Who? Daniel's expression was grim. Mark. Emily began shaking. He knows we have the key. Suddenly my phone buzzed. A text message appeared. I opened it. There was a photograph of Lily sleeping, taken inside my house. Under the photograph were 7 words. You should have stayed out of this. I looked toward the hallway. My granddaughter was sleeping only 20 feet away. And for the first time in my life, I felt something stronger than fear. I felt rage. I looked at Daniel. Tomorrow morning, I said, we go to that bank. Then I added, and this time I'm not running. The next morning, Daniel and I took Emily to the bank. Lily stayed with a trusted neighbor. I wanted her nowhere near the danger. The bank manager looked uncomfortable when we mentioned box 317. I'm sorry, he said. That box belongs to Mr. Marcarter. Emily stepped forward. My husband is trying to destroy evidence. The manager hesitated. Daniel showed his identification. We're not asking you to break the law. We're asking you to cooperate with an investigation. After several phone calls, we learned something unexpected. Mark had visited the bank the previous evening, but he hadn't been able to open the box. Why? Because he no longer had the second key. Emily's key was one of 2. The manager led us downstairs. The vault was cold and silent. Box 317 sat behind a steel door. Emily inserted the key. It clicked. The door opened. Inside was a small black case. Emily reached for it, but there was also an envelope. My name was written on it. I stared at the handwriting. It was Mark's. I opened it. Inside was a single photograph. It showed Emily standing beside Lily. On the back were 3 words. She knows everything. Emily started crying. I don't understand. Daniel opened the black case. Inside was a flash drive and several documents. Bank transfers, fake signatures, property records, company accounts. Everything Mark had stolen. But then Daniel found something else. A birth certificate. Lily's. The name of Lily's father had been altered. Emily looked confused. That's impossible. Daniel examined it carefully. This document was changed. Why? He looked at Emily. Because someone wanted to hide Lily's real parentage. My heart stopped. What are you saying? Emily stared at him. Lily is Mark's daughter. Daniel shook his head. Not according to this. Emily grabbed the document. Her hands trembled. This says Lily's biological father is. She stopped. Her face went completely pale. Who? She looked at me. Then whispered a name. Jonathan. I knew the name. Jonathan was Mark's younger brother. He had died in a mysterious car accident 2 years earlier. I couldn't speak. Emily covered her mouth. Jonathan was Lily's father. Daniel looked at the documents. Then Mark had a reason to hide this. Emily suddenly understood. Mark wanted Lily because she was Jonathan's heir. I felt dizzy. Jonathan had owned a large share in the family business. After his death, that inheritance should have gone to his child, Lily. Mark had been trying to control it. But there was another document, a handwritten will. Jonathan had left everything to his daughter and appointed Emily as guardian. Mark had no legal right to the money. That explained everything. He hadn't been trying to get Lily back because he loved her. He wanted access to her inheritance. Emily began crying. All these months. She looked at me. He wasn't trying to find me. No, Daniel said. He was trying to find Lily. Suddenly, we heard footsteps outside the vault. Daniel closed the case. Someone is here. We stepped into the hallway. A man in a dark coat stood near the elevator. He saw us. Then he ran. Daniel chased him. I followed as quickly as my old legs allowed. The man disappeared through the back entrance. But he dropped something. A phone. I picked it up. The screen was still unlocked. There were dozens of photographs. Emily, Lily, me, our house, our neighbors, everything. But one photograph made my blood freeze. It showed Lily sleeping in my bedroom, taken just hours earlier. Someone had been inside my house. I looked at Emily. She understood immediately. Dad. I grabbed her hand. We're going home. Why? Because whoever took these photographs may still be there. When we arrived, the front door was open. Inside, everything looked untouched. Almost. Then Emily screamed. Lily was gone. On the kitchen table was a note. I picked it up. 3 words were written across it. Come alone, Edward. And beneath them was an address. An abandoned warehouse. I wanted to call the police immediately. Daniel insisted we shouldn't rush in blindly. But I couldn't think clearly. My granddaughter was missing. I was willing to walk into hell itself to bring her back. Daniel contacted his former colleagues and arranged surveillance. Then we drove toward the warehouse. Emily stayed behind with another officer. I refused to let her come. The warehouse stood at the edge of the city. Broken windows, rusting metal doors. No lights, no people. At least, none that I could see. I entered alone. Lily. My voice echoed through the building. Then I heard crying. Grandpa. I ran toward the sound. Lily was sitting on a wooden chair. Her hands weren't tied. She looked frightened but unharmed. I rushed toward her. Then a voice came from behind me. Touch her and you'll regret it. I turned. Mark stood there. His face was calm, almost smiling. You ruined everything, he said. I stepped between him and Lily. You destroyed my daughter. She destroyed herself. You made her homeless. She chose to run. You threatened her. Mark laughed. You really believe her? I looked at him. I believe my daughter. His smile disappeared. You don't understand what's at stake. I understand enough. He stepped closer. Give me the flash drive. I stared at him. So that's why you're here. Mark's eyes hardened. You have no idea what those documents will do. They'll send you to prison. He laughed again. You think I'm the only one involved? That sentence stopped me. What does that mean? Mark leaned forward. My father isn't the only powerful man behind this. Who else? He smiled. Then I heard footsteps. 2 men entered the warehouse. One was Mark's father, Richard Carter. The other was a man I recognized from television, a wealthy businessman who had donated millions to political campaigns. My stomach turned. Mark said, "These men can make your life disappear." I looked at Lily. She was terrified. I stepped forward. "You're not touching my granddaughter." Richard smiled. "Then give us what belongs to us." "It doesn't belong to you." "It will." I reached into my coat. Mark's eyes widened. I pulled out the flash drive. He smiled, but I didn't give it to him. Instead, I held it up. "You want this?" "Yes." "Then come get it." Mark stepped forward. At that moment, sirens exploded outside. Everyone froze. Daniel's voice came through a loudspeaker. "Police, drop your weapons and step away from the child." Richard's face changed. Mark looked at me with pure hatred. "You set us up." "No," I said. "You set yourselves up." The police stormed inside. Mark tried to run. He was tackled before he reached the door. Richard was arrested too. Lily ran into my arms. I held her tightly. But there was one thing bothering me. Why had Mark been so confident? Why had he said other powerful people were involved? Daniel came toward me. "We found the original financial records." "Where?" "Hidden inside the warehouse." My heart sank. "How many names?" He looked at me. 27. Then he lowered his voice. "And Mark isn't the person who organized it." I stared at him. "Who is?" Daniel handed me a file. The name on the front made my blood run cold. It belonged to someone I had trusted for 15 years. Someone who had helped me after my wife died. Someone who had stood beside my family at every funeral. Someone I considered a friend. I looked at Daniel. "This can't be true." He nodded. "It is." I opened the file. And suddenly I understood why my daughter had been running. The person behind everything wasn't Mark. It was someone much closer to me. His name was Robert Hayes. For 15 years, Robert had been my closest friend. After my wife died, he was the man who checked on me. When I was sick, he brought groceries. When Emily got married, he stood beside me. I had trusted him like a brother. Now his name was inside a criminal investigation involving millions of dollars. I refused to believe it. Maybe there's another explanation. Daniel shook his head. "There isn't." The evidence showed Robert had helped move money through fake companies. But there was something worse. He had access to my personal information, my bank accounts, my house, my daughter's records, everything. Emily sat silently across from me. Then she whispered, "That's how they found me." I looked at her. "What?" Robert knew where I was. My heart broke. "He helped Mark." Emily nodded. "He told me you couldn't protect me." I clenched my fists. "Where is he?" Daniel stopped me. "We don't know." Then my phone rang. "Robert." I answered. His voice was calm. "Edward." I couldn't speak. "You found out?" "Yes." He sighed. "I wish you hadn't." "Where are you?" "You'll never find me." "You hurt my daughter." "I protected the business." "You destroyed her life." "She was in the way." Those words changed something inside me. For 15 years, I had considered Robert family. Now I realized he had never seen my family as people. Only obstacles. "You threatened my granddaughter." "She was valuable. She was a child. She was an inheritance." I closed my eyes. Then I said, "You made one mistake." "What?" "You thought I was still the old man you knew." There was silence. I continued. "You forgot that I spent 40 years building businesses, negotiating contracts, and protecting my family." Robert laughed. "What can you possibly do?" I smiled. "Everything." I had already transferred copies of the evidence to 3 different attorneys. I had contacted the authorities, and I had discovered something Robert didn't know. Years earlier, my wife had placed several properties into a private family trust. Robert had tried to access them, but he couldn't, because the final authority belonged to Emily. That meant he had been trying to destroy Emily because she stood between him and millions. I gave the evidence to the investigators. Within 24 hours, Robert's accounts were frozen. His companies were raided. His properties were seized. Then he was arrested at an airport. But I wasn't finished. I wanted my daughter to hear the truth from him. At the courthouse, Robert finally saw Emily. For the first time, his confidence disappeared. She looked at him. "You made me believe I was worthless." Robert said nothing. "You made me afraid of my own father." Still nothing. "You took my home." He looked away. "You took my child." His face hardened. Then Emily said, "But you couldn't take the one thing you never understood." Robert looked at her. "What?" "My father." I stepped beside her. Robert stared at me. I said, "You thought an old man would be easy to destroy." He lowered his head. "You were wrong." Months later, the court convicted Robert and Mark. The stolen money was recovered. Emily got her home back. Lily was safe. But the story didn't end there. Because one evening, Emily came into my study holding a letter. "Dad," I looked up. "What is it?" She placed it on my desk. It came from Mark. I opened it. There were only 2 sentences. "You won the first battle, but you still don't know what happened to Jonathan." I looked at Emily. She was trembling. Jonathan's death had always been called an accident, but now we had reason to question it. I slowly folded the letter. "Emily." She looked at me. "What?" I said. "Maybe your brother-in-law wasn't killed in an accident." And suddenly, the revenge we thought was over had only just begun. For 3 days, I couldn't stop thinking about Jonathan. His death had happened 2 years earlier. A rainy night. A lonely highway. A crashed car. The police had ruled it an accident, but now we knew Mark had been hiding Lily's inheritance. We reopened the case. Daniel helped us find the original accident report. There was one detail everyone had overlooked. Jonathan's brakes had failed. At the time, investigators believed it was mechanical failure, but a mechanic examined the records and discovered something disturbing. The brake system had been deliberately damaged. Jonathan had been murdered, and the person who ordered it? Mark. But Mark wasn't acting alone. Robert had arranged the cover-up. Richard had paid the people who helped. And there was one final name. A man who had never been questioned. The lawyer who handled Jonathan's estate. We found him in another state. He confessed everything. Jonathan had discovered the family's money laundering operation. He planned to expose them, so they killed him. But before he died, Jonathan had secretly changed his will. He left everything to Lily. That's why they wanted her. Not because they loved her, because she was the key to their stolen fortune. When the truth finally came out, the entire family empire collapsed. Businesses closed. Properties were seized. Millions were returned to the victims. Emily eventually moved back into her old home. But she wasn't the same woman who had walked barefoot through the rain. She was stronger. And Lily? She grew into a happy little girl who loved rainy days. One afternoon, years later, she asked me something I'll never forget. "Grandpa, why did Mommy have to run away?" I looked at Emily. She smiled sadly. Then she answered, "Because sometimes people are brave enough to leave before they become broken." Lily hugged her. I watched them from the porch, and I thought about the night I first saw my daughter walking barefoot through the rain. If I had driven past her, if I had looked away, if I had decided she was someone else's problem, my granddaughter might have disappeared forever. That thought still haunts me. But there was something else I learned. People often think revenge means destroying the person who hurt you. It doesn't. Sometimes revenge is surviving. Sometimes it is rebuilding the life they tried to steal. Sometimes it is watching your daughter laugh again after someone convinced her she would never smile. And sometimes, revenge is simply making sure the people who destroyed your family can never hurt another innocent person again. Months after the trial, Emily came to me with a small wooden box. "Dad, I found this in Mom's closet." Inside was an old photograph of our family. Me, my wife, Emily as a little girl. I stared at it for a long time. Behind the photograph was a handwritten note from my wife. It said, "Protect them, even when they forget how to protect themselves." I couldn't hold back my tears. My wife had written those words years before any of this happened. And somehow, they had become the truth of my entire life. I looked at Emily. I almost lost you." She shook her head. "No, Dad." She held my hand. "You found me." I looked toward Lily, who was playing in the garden. She was laughing, healthy, safe, loved. That was the ending I had prayed for. Not money, not revenge, not justice. Just my daughter standing beside me, and my granddaughter growing up without ever knowing what it felt like to sleep hungry or fear the sound of a stranger's footsteps. I had seen my daughter walking barefoot in the rain. I had seen her broken. I had seen her afraid. But I also watched her rebuild herself. And that taught me something I will carry until my final breath. You can steal someone's house. You can steal their money. You can even convince them that they are worthless. But if they still have someone willing to stand beside them, you haven't won. The people who tried to destroy my daughter begged for mercy in the end. But I didn't need to destroy them. The truth did that for me. And every time I see Lily running through the garden, I remember that terrible rainy night. The night I found my daughter. The night she found her way home. And the night I finally understood that sometimes the greatest revenge isn't making your enemy suffer. It's giving the people they tried to break a life so beautiful they realize they failed.